A sudden hush fell over a makeshift command post near the front lines in 1944 when an enraged George S. Patton, 4 stars gleaming on his helmet, stormed inside, caked in mud and stinging from a near miss by artillery. According to one startled corporal present, Patton paused just long enough to catch his breath before roaring, "They're not going to stop me today or any day." The general's face was streaked with sweat and fury, yet there was a distinct gleam in his eyes. That scene, rarely described in official reports, captured the raw intensity that made Patton both feared and revered. He was a general who believed deeply in destiny, a man certain that fate had carved a special path for him in the deadliest conflict the world had ever known. Whether stepping out of his command car or chastising a soldier for cowardice, Patton always displayed an unshakable conviction. War demanded ferocity, flamboyance, and relentless forward movement. For millions in the Allied nations, he emerged as a symbol of unstoppable offense, a sword pointed at the heart of Nazi Germany. Yet behind that fearsome presence lay layers of ambition, complexity, and conflict that defined both his triumphs and his controversies. Born on November 11, 1885 in San Gabriel, California, back when it was just a modest settlement overshadowed by the farmland of Southern California, George Smith Patton Jr. came from a lineage that brimmed with military tradition. His family traced a proud connection to the Confederacy during the American Civil War, and earlier, ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War. Stories of cavalry charges, gallant officers, and battlefield glories were woven into his upbringing from the earliest days. The late 19th century was a period of American expansion and industrial change. The Spanish-American War was on the horizon, and with it, a wave of renewed patriotism. In that environment, the young Patton grew up steeped in old-world concepts of chivalry and honor, frequently devouring books about great commanders, from Napoleon to Robert E. Lee. His father, George Patton Sr., was a prominent attorney whose law practice kept the family comfortable, but it was the elder Patton's tales of proud soldierly heritage that captured George Jr.'s imagination. As a child, Patton wrestled with significant challenges in reading and writing, a difficulty sometimes linked in modern terms to dyslexia. Yet he compensated with a startling memory for spoken stories and a deep fascination with classical history. He loved reciting lines from Shakespeare and the Bible, often for visitors, and found an outlet for his restlessness in physical pursuits. He was an avid outdoorsman, relishing days on horseback. From an early age, Patton believed that speed and aggression, whether on foot or on a galloping steed, could win the day in any confrontation. That mindset would later inform his approach to modern warfare, even as technology evolved beyond the horse cavalry he so cherished. By the time he approached adulthood, Patton was determined to attend West Point, the United States Military Academy, widely considered a breeding ground for the nation's top officers. He succeeded in gaining admission in 1904, though his academic struggles persisted. Undeterred, Patton threw himself into physical training, excelling in sports like fencing and track. He was not the top scholar in his class, but his enthusiasm for tactics, discipline, and the intangible spirit of soldiery stood out. Classmates described him as simultaneously charming and intense, a young man who could quote scripture by morning and swear profusely by afternoon if events didn't go his way. That combination of devoutness and raw passion would become a hallmark of his personality. After graduating in 1909, Patton joined the cavalry, still a romantic branch of the Army at the time. He quickly developed a reputation as a gifted polo player, marksman, and swordsman. In fact, he helped design the M1913 cavalry saber, nicknamed the Patton saber, which showcased his belief in aggressive, unrelenting attacks, even in close combat. By 1916, he found himself serving under General John J. Pershing in the expedition against Pancho Villa in Mexico. There, for the first time, he gained hands-on experience with mechanized vehicles, early trucks and automobiles used in pursuit of Villa's forces. The mission, while limited, gave Patton a taste of modern mobility in warfare, hinting that the cavalry's traditional role might soon shift to machines. When the United States entered World War I in 1917, Patton yearned for a chance to prove himself on a larger stage. He was assigned to the brand new Tank Corps, where he quickly embraced the notion that these armored beasts could break enemy lines. Over in Europe, trench warfare had decimated ranks, and the Allies were desperate for fresh tactics. Patton threw himself into the study of French and British tank operations, determined to refine their methods. At the Battle of Saint-Mihiel in September 1918, he personally led tanks into battle, exemplifying his belief in frontline leadership. He was wounded by machine gun fire, but refused evacuation until he'd overseen the tank's success. This was an early glimpse of his battlefield nerve, a trait that awed some and alarmed others. After the war, Patton faced the lean interwar years, when budgets were slashed and progress sometimes stalled. He served in various cavalry and staff positions, continuing to advocate for armored warfare. While many higher-ups still saw tanks as auxiliary units, Patton insisted they were the future. He spent endless hours drafting papers, giving lectures, and trying to persuade superiors to invest in mechanized forces. Family life provided a counterbalance to these professional obsessions. He married Beatrice Ayer, whom he deeply loved, and the couple built a household grounded in loyalty and tradition. Letters between them reveal a softer side to the intense officer. He wrote of missing her presence while stationed away, weaving in poetry and romantic yearnings. He also wrestled with self-doubt, confiding that he feared peacetime might render his aspirations irrelevant. Despite periods of frustration, Patton's drive never dimmed. As the world veered toward another cataclysmic conflict in the late 1930s, this time triggered by Hitler's Germany, Patton saw an opportunity to prove armor's worth. When World War II erupted in 1939, the U.S. initially remained neutral, but events overseas, including Nazi aggression in Europe, forced the nation to ramp up preparedness. By 1941, Patton was commanding a newly formed armored division, infusing it with the same sense of speed and daring that had long fueled his approach. Soldiers recalled how the general would show up at 5 a.m. in full regalia, polished helmet, riding breeches, twin ivory-handled pistols, to lead pre-dawn maneuvers. He demanded discipline at every level, but also rewarded competence. Some men resented the constant pressure, while others were inspired by the sense of belonging to an elite force. America's entry into the war after Pearl Harbor in December 1941 thrust Patton into the limelight. He oversaw tank training programs across the country, forging the spearhead that would ultimately fight in North Africa, Sicily, and Europe. In 1942, he led Operation Torch landings in Morocco, marking the U.S. ground forces' first major involvement against Axis troops. The North African campaign soon tested Patton's mettle. Early in 1943, Allied forces suffered humiliating setbacks at Kasserine Pass under different leadership. Patton was brought in to reorganize and galvanize the battered units. Within days, the entire atmosphere changed. He instituted strict discipline, enforcing salutes, punishing sloppy dress, installing high standards for readiness. He demanded results and hammered home a code: "We'll win this war because we'll kill them before they kill us." Under his guidance, morale rebounded, and the Allies regained momentum, driving the Germans out of North Africa. Patton's next major test came in the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. Commanding the Seventh Army, he spearheaded a rapid push from the west of the island. Determined to reach Messina before the British General Bernard Montgomery, Patton pressed his men forward in relentless marches, capturing key towns in record time. That aggression paid off militarily, but came with a moral cost. In separate incidents, Patton slapped 2 soldiers suffering from combat stress in field hospitals, berating them as cowards. News of these slapping incidents spread, sparking outrage among medical staff, fellow officers, and the public once the story reached home. General Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, reprimanded Patton severely, forcing him to apologize to the soldiers in question. For a time, it looked as if this scandal might end Patton's career. The slapping incidents remain some of the darkest controversies surrounding him, exposing how his passion for battle sometimes manifested in cruelty toward those who couldn't match his iron-willed standards. Following the slapping controversy, Patton was sidelined from planning roles for the Normandy invasion. Yet Eisenhower, who recognized Patton's unmatched ability to motivate troops, found a way to use him strategically. In the months leading up to D-Day, Allied intelligence leaked information suggesting Patton would command a fictitious invasion force at Pas-de-Calais. The Germans, aware of Patton's reputation, fell for the ruse, reallocating significant defenses. Meanwhile, once the real invasion gained a foothold in Normandy, Patton returned to operational command. He led the newly formed Third Army in a breakout from the beachheads in late July 1944, initiating a whirlwind push across France. The speed of Third Army's advances became legendary. In some phases, his tanks covered hundreds of miles in mere days, capturing tens of thousands of German prisoners. That audacity re-established Patton as a central figure in Allied operations. However, it wasn't always smooth. Logistics strained under the rapid advance, leading to fuel shortages that sometimes left Patton's column stranded. He famously complained that he could beat the Germans if only he had enough gasoline. Critics accused him of outrunning support lines and ignoring flanks, putting his men at risk. Patton shrugged off such concerns, believing that unrelenting pressure, holding the enemy by the nose and kicking him in the pants, as he put it, would break German resistance faster than cautious step-by-step tactics. Yet behind the bravado, his diaries suggest he felt the weight of each casualty. In private, he lamented the men lost under his command, even as he clung to the notion that speed was saving more lives overall. His Third Army played a crucial role in relieving the besieged town of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. In treacherous winter conditions, Patton pivoted his forces northward in an astonishingly swift maneuver. That ability to redeploy on short notice underscored his belief that warfare favored the side that could move fastest and strike hardest. By the war's end in 1945, his reputation soared among rank-and-file soldiers who admired the general's readiness to be near the front, though senior Allied leaders sometimes found him too unpredictable or prone to embarrassing incidents. A few controversies arose post-war, including remarks suggesting he wanted to rearm German soldiers to fight the Soviets, reflecting a vehement anti-communist stance that clashed with Allied policy. Alongside battlefield achievements and controversies, Patton's personal life bore both devotion and tension. He adored his wife, Beatrice, writing her letters from various fronts that revealed a surprising tenderness and reliance on her moral support. He also spoke openly about feeling guided by God or a sense of reincarnation, claiming he might have been a warrior in past centuries. spiritual beliefs, and personal diaries show him wrestling with the brutal realities of war. He once wrote about walking a battlefield after combat, seeing the bodies of his men, and praying for their souls with tears in his eyes, yet quickly turning around to plan the next offensive. This dichotomy, compassion and ferocity, became the essence of Patton. He sustained close friendships with subordinates who could keep pace with him, but was notorious for scorching insults directed at those he viewed as incompetent. Some described him as the perfect man to fight a war, bold, unwavering, unstoppable, yet unsuited to the quieter demands of diplomacy or post-conflict peacekeeping. Once Germany surrendered in May 1945, Patton oversaw parts of the American occupied zone, a job that required sensitivity to local civilians, ex-soldiers, and displaced persons. His impatience with red tape and the slow grind of reconstruction led to friction with Allied authorities. Another uproar came when he publicly criticized the policy of denazification, arguing that Germany needed bureaucrats who knew how to run the country, even if they had Nazi ties. This stance outraged many who believed no compromise should be made with Nazi elements. Pressure mounted, and he was relieved from command of the Third Army, reassigned to a lesser role. In December 1945, after a minor vehicle collision in Germany, Patton sustained a severe spinal injury that left him paralyzed. 12 days later, he died from complications in a Heidelberg hospital. News of his death shocked the world. This unstoppable tank commander, famed for defying bullets and bombs, lost to an unremarkable car crash. Even in death, rumors circulated. Some whispered conspiracies about Soviet or Allied plots, but none gained substantial evidence. The simplest explanation was that for once, fate caught up with him in the most ordinary way. His passing triggered a global wave of mourning mixed with a sense of relief among some who had been exasperated by his unpredictability. The general was buried at the Luxembourg American Cemetery among the soldiers he commanded, fulfilling his wish to rest with those who bore the weight of his orders. In the decades following World War II, historians and the public hotly debated Patton's legacy. Many highlighted his pivotal role in smashing through German lines and accelerating the end of the war in Europe. Others pointed to the slapping incidents and his unguarded remarks about rearming Germany as evidence of a dangerously flawed leader. The 1970 film Patton, starring George C. Scott, brought his persona to a new generation, capturing the swirling complexities, brilliant strategist, theatrical presence, unyielding taskmaster, and devoutly religious man with a foul mouth. From a broader historical perspective, Patton's approach to mechanized warfare helped shape modern doctrines of blitzkrieg-like offensives and combined arms operations. Although the Germans had refined blitzkrieg first, Patton's application of similar tactics from 1942 onward played a significant part in Allied successes, demonstrating that the U.S. Army could adopt and refine high-speed maneuvers. Some critics argue that his methods, had they been more fully embraced earlier, could have shortened certain campaigns. Others worry that his risk-taking cost unnecessary lives. The truth likely balances both arguments. His aggression hastened victories, but also exacted a price in casualties. Patton's glaring controversies serve as cautionary tales about the moral lines leaders can cross in the zeal to triumph. The slapping incidents and his callous attitude toward mental health remain stark reminders that even gifted generals can cause deep harm to individual soldiers. That said, for countless veterans who served under him, Patton embodied leadership that was gritty, direct, and above all, effective. They recalled how his visits to the front boosted morale. He had an uncanny ability to deliver rousing speeches peppered with raw language that made men believe they were part of an unstoppable force. He also insisted on accountability. If a tank broke down due to poor maintenance, he wanted answers. If a unit lagged behind schedule, they'd feel his wrath. These measures might have bred fear, but they also fostered a sense of professional pride. Some veterans, in interviews decades later, cited Patton as the prime reason they survived the war, attributing their success to the furious pace he demanded, which gave the enemy less time to respond. Others remembered him less fondly, saying they endured a relentless grind with no compassion for the stress or horror of the battlefield. Why should modern audiences still care about George S. Patton? The simplest answer is that he exemplifies the age-old tension between raw determination and moral responsibility in war. He was brilliant, yet flawed, a man who soared in conflict but struggled in peacetime, who championed faith and honor while sometimes belittling the vulnerable. Those contradictions reflect an uncomfortable truth about warfare, that victory can hinge on ruthless decisions, and the men making those calls walk a tightrope between heroism and cruelty. In an era of increasingly technological warfare, Patton's emphasis on speed, aggression, and personal leadership remains relevant. Military academies worldwide still study his campaigns for lessons on maneuver warfare, logistics, and morale. Patton also resonates in popular culture as an archetype of the brash, unyielding American general, someone who believed wholeheartedly in destiny and carved a path through adversity by sheer will. That resonance can spark thoughtful debate. Does society need leaders like him, especially in emergencies? Or do his missteps caution us that unchecked aggression and limited empathy risk crossing ethical lines? The mixed feelings that swirl around his memory underscore how war, by its nature, forces people into extremes. Patton's story shows that a single figure can be both indispensable and troubling, forging a legend that outlives them yet invites constant reevaluation. Stepping back to his personal realm offers another layer of reflection. The letters to his wife reveal moments of vulnerability, doubts about whether he was living up to the family tradition or if God truly had singled him out. He wrote about the heartbreak of hearing that men he'd known for years fell in a single action. He prayed, cried, cursed, and then put on his polished helmet to keep pushing the line forward. In these glimpses, he becomes more than just a braggadocious figure delivering fiery speeches. He was a man shaped by his own formidable sense of duty, overshadowed by the knowledge that war's horrifying toll was unfolding on his orders. By the end of 1945, that toll had claimed him indirectly through a mundane traffic collision. Even this final twist underscores how Patton was never as invincible as his persona suggested. The obituary headlines told of a fearless American general who'd unleashed tank armies across Europe, only to be undone by a freak accident. Such irony deepened the myth, fueling rumors and conspiracies that swirl around legends who leave before concluding their final chapter. Indeed, Patton's story, from birth to abrupt death, is one of the most emotionally charged and narratively rich among World War II commanders. For modern viewers, reflecting on Patton's extraordinary life means grappling with the moral complexities of war leadership, acknowledging that individuals like him can change the course of history while revealing harsh personal flaws. His battles shaped continental outcomes and saved countless lives from Axis domination. But his callous remarks and explosive temper also wounded those who depended on him for guidance. This duality is precisely why his story endures. Through it, we can see how leadership and ambition work hand in hand, how personal conviction can foster both progress and peril, and how the line between a hero and a tyrant can shift under the weight of a single decision. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.